I buried my husband. I watched them lower the casket. And yet, 6 months later, I received a letter from him. My name is Margaret. I'm 73 years old, and I never believed in ghosts or miracles. I still don't. But what happened to me? Well, I can't explain it any other way. It was just another quiet morning, the kind that feels heavier when you're alone. I made my tea, looked out at the empty porch swing, and went to get my notebook. Since William passed away, I've been writing him letters. Not to be dramatic, it's just how I cope. I tell him about my day, the garden, the aches in my knees, the way the house creaks more now that he's gone. I keep those letters in an old leather-bound journal, tucked in the drawer of my nightstand. No one knows. I live alone. That drawer is never opened by anyone but me. But that morning, the journal wasn't in the drawer. It was on my bed, open. And inside it was a single sheet of paper I had never seen before. It was his handwriting. God help me, it was his. The same slanted W, the same way he wrote my name, or Maggie with that little curl at the end. The letter said, "Maggie, my love, I miss you too, but you still have something important to do down there. I'll be waiting." My hands went cold. My breath caught. I hadn't written that. But it was on my paper, in my journal, in his hand. I wanted to believe I was imagining it, but deep down, I knew better, and that letter was just the beginning. I sat there for hours, just holding the letter, like it might vanish if I blinked too hard. I didn't cry right away. I didn't scream. I didn't even speak. I just stared at that handwriting, every curve of it, and tried to understand how something so impossible could feel so familiar. I knew his hand. William wrote the same way for 50 years. The way his M curled at the bottom, the little flick he always added to his lowercase r. I would have recognized it with my eyes closed. And that message. "Maggie, my love, I miss you too, but you still have something important to do down there. I'll be waiting." How could I explain it? I live alone. No one else has a key to my house. I don't leave my things lying around. That journal stayed locked in the nightstand, always. I tried to be rational. Maybe I wrote it in some dreamlike state. Maybe grief had gotten the better of me. I've heard stories of people sleepwalking, writing things they don't remember. But in my heart, I knew better. That morning, the air felt different, heavier, warmer, even with the window open, like the room had been holding its breath and finally exhaled. I walked slowly through the house. Every creak in the floor sounded louder. Every photograph on the wall seemed to look back at me. When I reached the sunroom, I glanced toward the peace lily, his favorite plant. I hadn't had the heart to throw it out. But it hadn't bloomed in 6 months. Nothing. Just green leaves slowly drooping, one by one. But that day, there it was. One pure white bloom, soft, open, bright like a little light in the quiet. I reached out to touch it, and I swear to you, Margaret, from yesterday would have called me crazy, but I felt warmth, like the sun had touched just that flower. Like his hand had been there moments before. I backed away slowly, my knees trembling. And then the radio. The old wooden one in the living room. It was off. I never touch it anymore. But as I passed by, it clicked on, all by itself. And guess what song began to play? Unchained Melody. Our song. He sang it to me the night he proposed. He burned dinner that night, spilled wine on the rug, and forgot his speech. But when he put that song on, he held my hands and told me he'd love me, even when our hair turned silver and our hands turned weak. Hearing it again, it broke something in me and healed something else. I sat on the edge of the couch, clutching that letter like a lifeline. Tears poured down, quiet and slow. I didn't wipe them. I didn't hide them. I just whispered, "Bill? Is that really you?" That night, I didn't write a letter. I didn't need to. I just held the one he left and laid it gently on my chest before I closed my eyes. And before sleep took me, I whispered one more thing into the darkness. If you're still with me, if this is really you, send me one more sign, just one. And he did. But it wasn't what I thought it would be. Not a song, not a flower. It was a name. and it changed everything. That night, I fell asleep holding his letter to my chest. It wasn't the kind of sleep that rests your bones. It was the kind that takes you somewhere else. Somewhere quiet, sacred. I dreamed I was sitting at our old kitchen table. The one with the chipped edge, from where William always knocked his coffee cup just a little too hard. Morning light was pouring through the windows, and everything felt warm, gentle, like the house remembered us. And there he was. He didn't walk in. He didn't open a door. He was just there, sitting across from me like no time had passed. His hair was darker than I remembered. His face, smoother. But those eyes, those were my William's eyes. He smiled, not a full grin, just that soft, knowing smile he used to give me when I was overthinking something. Then he reached out, placed his hand over mine, and said one word. Emily. I blinked. Who? I asked him in the dream. But he just smiled again and squeezed my hand. She needs you. And then he faded, like morning mist, and I woke up with a jolt. Emily. I didn't know an Emily, not in my family, not in the neighborhood. The name meant nothing, and yet it echoed in my chest like I'd heard it my whole life. I tried to shake it off, told myself dreams are just dreams. But then, the phone rang. It was my granddaughter, Claire. She was crying before she even said hello. I asked her what was wrong. She said she didn't know who else to call. Then she said it. I'm pregnant, Grandma. And I can't tell Mom yet. I don't know what to do. I told her to come over right away. She arrived with red eyes, trembling hands, and an envelope in her coat pocket. She sat down on the same couch where I'd wept with that letter days ago. I was going to go through with something, she whispered, but last night I had this dream. Her voice broke. He was there, Grandpa. He called me Emily. I've never used that name in my life, but when he said it, I felt safe. I couldn't breathe for a moment. She continued, He told me to talk to you. He said you would understand. I reached out and held her. No judgment, no shock. Just love. And in that moment, I knew. She was the mission. William's message, the plant, the music, the name. All of it led to her, the baby she was carrying, the life she almost gave up on, that child. That would be the one to carry his spirit forward. And maybe mine too. Claire stayed the night. I made her tea, just like I used to when she was little and had nightmares. She curled up on the couch with a blanket I crocheted years ago, the one William always called your magic cape. And for the first time in a long while, the house didn't feel so empty. After she went to sleep, I walked quietly into the guest room. It had been closed since William passed. I hadn't dared to go in. Too many memories hanging in the air, like dust. I turned on the lamp. The light was softer than I remembered. Maybe my eyes had changed. Or maybe the room had. In the corner, behind the cedar chest, was something I hadn't thought about in years. The cradle. William built it himself. He'd sanded every corner, polished every edge. Said he just wanted to be ready, in case we ever got surprised by life. We never were. Our 2 boys were grown, and that cradle never held a baby. But now it felt like it had been waiting all this time. I pulled it out gently, brushing off the dust with my sleeve. The wood still smelled like his workshop, cedar and a hint of tobacco. My hands shook as I ran my fingers over the carvings. He'd etched my name on one side, Maggie, and on the other, Love is never wasted. How had I forgotten that? I sat down beside it, knees aching, heart wide open. I thought about the baby growing inside Claire, about the strength it took her to come to me, about the name she confessed she'd already chosen, Emily. It wasn't just a coincidence. It was the thread tying everything together. William had known. Somehow, he'd known. And through all these signs, the letter, the flower, the song, the dream, he wasn't haunting me. He was guiding me, helping me step back into life. That night, I sat at my desk, pulled out my old pen, and opened the journal one last time. I wrote slower than usual, with tears falling onto the page. Dear Bill, you were right. She needs me, and I need her. Thank you for loving me enough to keep whispering, even from the other side. Tomorrow, I'll start sewing a quilt for Emily. And maybe, just maybe, when I hold her for the first time, I'll feel your hand resting over mine. The weeks that followed were quiet, but full. Claire visited more often. We baked banana bread, folded tiny onesies, sat on the porch in silence, just feeling the breeze. There's a kind of peace that doesn't need words, just company. I kept the cradle near the window, letting the sun fall on it each morning. It looked like it had been waiting all these years for one special soul. I wrote down stories about William, how he whistled off-key while cooking, the way he danced barefoot in the kitchen on Sunday mornings, how his eyes welled up the first time he held Claire as a baby. I wrote them for Emily. One day, she'd know who her great-grandfather was, not just from pictures, but through love retold. Then came the call. Claire's voice was shaking. "Grandma, it's time." I grabbed my purse, the pink quilt I'd finished that week, with William's initials stitched in the corner, and hurried to the hospital. Hours passed in waves of pain and courage. I held Claire's hand through every contraction, whispered, "You're not alone." And when Emily came into the world, strong and crying, I felt something warm pass through me, a peace I hadn't known since William was alive. When I held her, I didn't see his face, but I felt his presence, as if the room still held a piece of him, as if he had been watching, smiling,